So some common internal scars are, I'm sure a lot of people have heard about gelding scars. So there is a vet who releases the adhesions of the gelding scars internally. And I felt a lot of gelding scars externally and seen the effects that it can have on hind limb function. So it can cause lumbar issues, lumbosacral issues, hindend lameness, and behavioural issues just due to the restrictions and the pain. The other aspect is the psoas. So the psoas, Kerry Ridgway talked a lot about psoas tears, and the psoas is put under a lot of strain, especially in the ridden horse, or when their legs go backwards. And I think we don't see as commonly in dissections the tears in the psoas. However, I think because it's a muscle that's constantly moving, it probably heals reasonably well if not put under continuous strain. And so I don't think that you get the scar tissue in there that you potentially get in other muscles due to the constant movement. However, we do see, and on speaking to Sharon May Davis, she sees adhesion of scar tissue in the iliopsoas, so the insertion onto the medial aspect of the femur, and that's where you do see damage. But again, if you've got damage in the insertion point, you've already had strain through the origin, which is usually somewhere in the lower back there. So common external scars in the forehand. So the brachiocephalic, so the main kind of neck muscle. The pectorals, really common areas for tears, sometimes in their insertions onto the inside of the forelimb, sometimes in the girth area, sometimes in the superficial pecs at the front. But most horses that I feel will have some degree of tears in their pecs. Biceps brachii goes over the shoulder and is deeper underneath the brachiocephalic, and also in the upper forelimb, and I'll show you an image of that later. So you can see here we've got some dimples around the point of the shoulder, which I commonly see. And here we see what we see under dissection with the scar tissue in these areas. And here's a prophet's thumb print, and you can see that there's a disruption of the fiber alignment. This should all be muscle. And so you don't have full function of that muscle, and potentially you have adhesions to the underlying structures as well. And you can also see scars around the point of this horse's shoulder too. Well, also in the hind end, so the hamstrings around the tuber ischiae, really commonly affected, and around the tuber coxae, because it has so many muscles. They're both really important pivot points, and they have so many muscles attaching to them. The tuber coxae from all different directions, the abdominals this way, the quads, the back muscles. And so if you get restrictions in one of those areas, it's going to affect how that moves and affect the tension on the other muscles. Things around the tuber ischiae, sliding stops is a great way to tear through here, and really important that the horse is well warmed up, has regular body work to keep the pelvis functioning optimally and the hamstrings functioning optimally. The middle gluteal is important for sacroiliac function and support through the pelvis. And so we often see tears in the middle gluteal tongue, which is up under here, under this fascia, and sometimes in other areas through the mid portion. The adductor and the gracilis on the medial aspect and join up to the pelvis. And the dorsal sacroiliac ligaments and sacrotuberous ligaments, again, most horses I feel have damage in these. And this pelvic function is just so important. Other ways that they can damage the tuber coxae is falls on their side, and they can fracture the tuber coxae, and that's going to have an effect on the muscles and cause muscle tearing around there as well. And we see that a lot under dissection, tears in all of these areas. So here is one, you can see this big wad of scar tissue. This is in the hind end of a horse. We're looking at the semitendinosus here, and here you can see the depth of that. And here it also, we've got a lot of scarring, also went into over the hip, back of the hip joint. This is the sciatic ligament. And so you can see that this scar tissue is going to be affecting this sciatic ligament. And this scar tissue had occurred due to her fracture of the tuber ishii, where you can actually see this was all bone down here and it should be this shape. So it had fractured off and shifted down. And then we had all the tears through the back of the hip and associated areas there. So how do we treat these? So if it occurs and we know that it's occurred, then we're going to use ice generally. But depending on where it is in the healing phase, we might use heat. Laser and taping, mobilizing the area as soon as possible has been shown to be really beneficial to reduce scar tissue. So getting that area mobile, getting parallel fiber alignment, promoting production of collagen, but not mobile like let them out in the paddock and run around. We want controlled movement in the correct plane of motion for that muscle. Massage can be really beneficial to keep the circulation and make sure the origin insertions and all the other muscles are functioning well. Therapeutic ultrasound and walking is really, really beneficial as early as possible after that inflammatory stage has settled down to promote correct function. And generally, walking on a firmer surface to begin with and then building that up.